Hi, it's Bobby from Fifth Avenue Cakes, and today we're going to make some dazzling critters on a plaque cookie. So let's begin. Alright, so I have my plaque cookie and it's already covered in fondant. You could go ahead and cover it in royal icing if you wanted to. And the first thing we're going to do is make our acorn cup and our oak leaf. So I'm going to do the oak leaf first. And I am just right now kneading up a 50-50 mixture. Actually, it's more 25-75 of gum paste to fondant, and it's 75 of the gum paste. So we are going to go ahead and roll that out. And even though the acorn is a pretty fleshy leaf, I'm going to roll it fairly thin because it's going on a cookie. And the reason I went ahead and even added the fondant is because we want to keep it edible and a little bit soft, and this will do that for you. So you're just going to roll it until you get to about a see-through stage, but not so see-through that you could read through it. More like instead of tissue paper, you'd want it to be 2 pieces of tissue paper put together thick. So what is that, 1/32 of an inch? So that's about as thin as I want to go. I wouldn't go any thinner than that. You're going to take your OP acorn cutter, and you'll need 3. I already have some prepared, so I'm just going to show you how to do one because they're all done the same. And remember, you always want to keep your gum paste and fondant well kneaded and in a resealable bag. For our oak, it's so small that I would use a small cell stick to just soften the edges. You don't want to soften it too much because the cookie is fairly small and we just want to get it just a little bit soft. So half on the pad like always and half on the fondant gum paste mixture. And just go around your little oak leaf. And then we're going to vine our oak leaf. So I always buy bigger viners than I need because you can use them for gigantic oak leaves and you can use them for small. When you're working with a smaller leaf or a smaller petal, you want to position it more towards the top. You want to make sure the top and the bottom are aligned with your vine, or with your vein, excuse me. And then go ahead and just press it shut like you would any type of vining. And because it is a mixture, you're not always going to get all the vines that you want, and I'm going to show you how to put those in yourself. So we're going to take it out. I've got a nice central vine. That's what I care about most. Now I'm going to put it in my hand, and with the smaller size of my Dresden tool, I'm going to go ahead and bring my vining of that leaf in, and just bring it to your line. Now remember, leaves have movement, and because oak leaves are more of a fall leaf, it's going to have a little bit more curling than some of your other leaves because they're getting ready to leave for a while. So I'm going to turn it over, and with the other side of my Dresden tool, I'm going to curl up a couple of petals. And I'm going to choose some petals that maybe the vining didn't come out as defined as some other ones. I'm going to do a little bit at the top. It can curl back a little bit. I'm going to turn it over. And don't worry about the bottom. That's going to be hidden with your acorn cup. and we're going to pinch the central vine, and then we can shape it. So we want to get that nice vine shape in there, and then we can go ahead and decide how we want it to, what kind of movement we want it to have. Now I'm going to have him going a little bit that way to my, so my right side is up and my left side's down. Keep in mind you're doing 3 of them, so make sure that one is the opposite, and you never want all your leaves to look the same anyway, but you want them to be able to lay. And then I'm just going to put it on this soft foam pad, and if you need to, you can put a piece of foam under there if you want to keep it closed a little bit more, or you can put a little piece of paper towel under there. Just something to hold that leaf into place. So we're going to let that sit. And you want to do your oaks and your cups. I would say if you're going to make these cookies in the afternoon, I would do them early in the morning. 24 hours would be preferable, but if you don't have 24 hours, a good 4 to 6 hours is good. Alright, so this is my center for my, that you can use them for daisy centers. I use this to make my acorn cup. If you don't have one of these, we sell them in the shop, but if you don't have one and you don't want to get one, I'm just needing my 25-75 mixture. You can use a nutmeg grinder. You want to make sure that you evenly roll your acorn cap onto your nutmeg grinder, and I'll show you why when I put it into my center cup. And they come as a set of 3. This is the smallest. So you want to make a seamless ball. Once you get a seamless ball, you want to not quite make a bed, but you do want to get a little teardrop going, just to give yourself a little extra. And this is a little bit more, a little bit too big, so I'm going to actually take some away. You don't need that much. By making the teardrop, you're giving yourself a heads up when you go to push it down, because it does go in at an angle, so you give yourself a little time saving. So we're going to put it in. I'm going to push it in with my finger, and then I'm going to take my cell pin and I'm going to hollow out my center. You want to do that evenly as possible. At the same time, I am also putting in the dots that the acorn cap has. So now getting the acorn out, you just want to pinch, I don't know if you can see me doing it, you just want to pinch your cap or your binder, and there you go. And you put him to the side to dry. And I would put him sitting upside down like this. For our bat, this is a Squire's mold. It comes with a bat, a cat, and a pumpkin. I love this mold. I've used it, gosh, I think I bought this in 2010, and I've used it every year since. I absolutely love it. I've used it for cupcakes, for cakes. Now, most of the time, I'll tell you with a mold, and I'm just kneading my black fondant. Let me first talk about the black fondant. I normally would not purchase colored fondant because you can color it easily. However, black and red are one of those colors. I don't know if you can see. There's green and purple in there. It's by the time you get to the density of your black color, your fondant has now become mushy. So this is Satin Ice's black fondant, and I find it works really well. Normally when we use a mold, I will tell you to keep your ball or your, and black turns your hands black, or your log about the same size as your mold. But because this one is so oddly shaped, you want to give yourself, oh, maybe the size of an acorn ball, and then push it around, and then we will at that time work it. And I'm going to show you how to do that. The molds that have a little bit more movement to them, where they have a little bit, more of a stretch, and you have to get the detail down, like this back has wings. We're just going to work from the center of our mold all the way down to our wing. And since I do want this fairly thin, you can use a little bit of cornstarch if the fondant is sticking to you. If it's sticking to your finger so it doesn't move with your finger. And I can see that my mold right there is part of my mold, and that's the part I don't need, so that's great. So I'm doing fairly good, or fairly well. Now that we have our bat into all the little crevices that we need the bat to be into, or the fondant to be into, and I'm going to add just a tad more because I can see we're not quite back there. Since nobody's going to see the back of this mold, you can add more on if you need to. You're going to start tearing it away. So if you have long nails, you can either clean your fingers when you're done or cut your nails off. I choose not to have nails. I can't stand that black look under my nails. Plus I don't like denting my fondant. But you want to work that fondant. If you can work it back into your shape, and in this case it's a bat, that's great. If not, just tear it away. You'll be able to reuse any of your extra fondant. And I always do my bat last because it does make your hands black. And since my acorn was a cream colored, and so was my acorn cap, not my acorn, was a cream colored, and so was my leaf, I obviously don't want to transfer that color. So work it in. You might need to cut a little bit, but the idea is that you shouldn't have to. Like I can see on this side, I've got my seam really well. You can see that it's open right there, and I don't have it so well over here, so I'm just going to work on this with my thumb. Now keep in mind that the bat's little toes are hairy, so if you have a little bit of fondant that is stringing along, this is the one case that it would be okay. It'd be perfectly fine. And really, this is your most time-consuming mold. But this particular mold has so much detail, and I love this little bat, as I said. You don't need to let him dry completely either. You can make him when you do your acorn cap and your leaves, or you could push him in sooner, about an hour before, because this fondant isn't really going to go anywhere. The black seems to have a little bit more or less drying time than the rest. And then we're just going to pop him out nice and neat. And it looks like I only need a smidge of cutting, so we did really well. So we're just going to come in here and cut just where we have too much fondant. Like I said, his little toes can be hairy, but you do want them to be separated. And yes, bats do have webbed toes, but not this webbed. So do as much detailing as you feel is comfortable for you. I'm pretty much a perfectionist, so I work extremely hard at getting as much of the excess fondant off as I can. And like I said, I did most of that when we were making our bat. And then you can pick him up. Be careful not to touch his wings because you can see there's a ton of detail in the wing and the body. And just smooth it in. Now these little things that are a part of his wing, I think that's when he turns into a vampire. I have to tell you, I'm not the most educated person on bat anatomy. You want to be sure to get all of the black off of your board because it will transfer to anything that you are working on. And there's our little bat. I have colored little eyes with like this piping, this yellow fluorescent piping gel that's given the eyes an eerie look. On this one I chose not to do that, but that works really well too. So we're going to take our bat and we're just going to move him to the side. So now I'm going to bring back my acorn leaves that are already colored so that I can position my spider. So take your acorn, and this one, just decide which one looks best. You're not placing them down right now, so it won't really matter. I just want it for guidance so that I can make a little bit of a mark with my pin. So thinking of the legs, probably one spider's body could be right here. And remember, you don't want the legs to come off on either side. And then maybe one right about there. And that will be covered up with the piping. So I'm going to remove the leaves and put them back on my little fun foam. Please excuse my yellow colored hands. It would seem when I colored my royal icing and my fondant, gum paste mixture, and my fondant, I got a little bit of that caramel on me. So we're using a 1.5 tip and a number 1 tip. I've labeled my 1.5 tip. I'm just going to pipe a little out to the side. So the first thing we want to do is pipe the body. The bottom of the body is bigger than the top. So we're going to pipe a circle and a smaller circle and release pressure as you're going around. We've done that several times before, but I'll show it to you again. Now, I did several of these, so I had time to let my body dry, but you can put it under a light and let it dry for about 10 minutes just to crust over so you can get your legs on properly. So that's the bottom of my body. I'm releasing pressure and bringing my tip around. I'm going to turn him so that I can do his little head, and the head is smaller. So there's my spider. For the legs, I'm going to try and do this so you can see it as best as possible and I can still get underneath. Again, I'm going to make sure that my tip is not clogged. I have a number 1 tip. If you wanted to, you could do a 0. I'm going to pipe a curve, but not completely because I want to be able to pipe the little knuckles, as I call them. I also am not big on spider anatomy, so I'm going to describe it the best that I can in Bobby terms. You want to do half of a curve. And if your curve does not look exactly like the other curve, you can take a damp brush and just move it And you can see this one's just a tad longer than I wanted, so I'm going to take some off. So you're going to do your bottom legs first, and then we want to do the top legs. And that way it's so much easier to get your center legs in. I'm going in between the head and the body, and with even pressure I'm coming around his little face. So I'm coming underneath so it looks like those legs are attached, and with even pressure I'm going to bring it around his head. Now the legs don't have to be exactly the same direction. Spiders' legs don't always go in the same direction. They're moving so fast all the time, but they do need to be the same length and come from the same part. So they need to be parallel. Now to give the illusion that those legs are coming up, I'm going to pipe two very, very small dots close to the body and give them a few minutes to crust over. I'll go over and do the other spider bottom and top legs while those are crusting over. So the same thing, we're going to start at the base. We're going to come out on a curve and stop, and come out on a curve parallel on the other side and stop. If you end up going too long, that was a little short, but we can fix it when we put his feelers in. You'll need to take some off because when you go to put the rest of the leg on, you'll be too long. So with even pressure and lifting, just like you would for string work, and it's the same consistency as you would have for string work. And again, we're going to put those two little dots in. And I'll show you why. So those were the two dots I did first on that side of the spider, which would be, well, now it's my left side, but it was my right side. You're going to go down to the body, come up and over. It gives the illusion that that leg is actually up. Sometimes spiders have their legs up. And by having those two little dots there, and what did I give it? Literally maybe 30 seconds is all you need. Now we'll go and finish the back leg. So we're going to put the feeler on. Be careful of your spider at the bottom. So we're going to make a dot or a ball and come down like that. You want to keep even pressure, but this time you want less pressure than before because the bottom part of the leg is quite a bit thinner. So just like that. And the same thing at the top. So you'll make your little ball, come out from your ball, curl a tad, and bring him up. I'm going to go ahead and put the bent legs on this one, and then I'll finish the top and bottom legs of this spider, and I'll show you how to do the sides. You always want to make sure that that tip is clean, so if you need to wipe it off, do so. And I can see that this leg stayed up in the air, so I'm just going to coax it down. So I'm going to do my ball and just bring that thin little bottom part of the spider in. Now I'm a little long here, so I'm going to give him a very short little feeler. And my husband tells me that that's where they feel whatever they're doing with, but I have no idea what that means. Like I said, spiders aren't my favorite creature. And then make your ball and come out a little bit less than you did for your top and bottom. So we'll do that again. We'll make our little ball, which is the knuckle, and come straight out. Make a little ball, and with less pressure but even, come straight out. For the body, I was working with a pressure consistency, and if you need a reminder on that, I did a whole video on pressure piping. Just going to move that leg a little. Alright, so those need to dry completely before you can paint them bronze, but I will show you how to get your bat on and your leaves on. I won't be able to show you how to put your acorn on because he does need to be colored, but you would just petal dust him green and do the top with bronze and the inside with a little bit of chestnut and a little bit of bronze. I am not trying to make a correct color oak leaf. I have done those in the past, and I do have that out, plus I'm going to be doing a cake on how to make an autumn leaf, but you want to put a little bit of royal icing on your oak leaf and then decide which one will be what side. This one is curled quite a bit, so I want that curl to show, so I will go ahead and just overlap. You don't need to worry too much about the royal icing peeking through because your acorn cap is going to go on, and I'll show you what that would look like. To get your bat on, you want to do the exact same thing. Just bring your royal icing down his legs, and you might want to put a little bit on his body, a little bit here. Remember, he's going to be hanging above, so you don't need too much on the wing area. If you find that you have a little bit of royal icing coming through, just take your wet brush. No harm, no foul. Completely gone. You could petal dust him with some black luster dust. And then when you go to put on... Actually, I do have a painted acorn cup. I was wrong. When you go to put your acorn cup on, make a glob right here in the center, like so. I thought I had everything prepared. And then decide if you want your acorn cup to be coming down a little bit or sitting on your leaf straight up. I want him to angle down a little bit, which will also bring up my leaves. And there you go. You have your critter Halloween cookies. When these are dry, you'll paint them with a little bit of bronze luster dust. Happy Halloween!